This is Kenneth Wong, Senior Editor for DE 24/7. Designing something from scratch in 48 hours from concept to prototype will be a challenge for anybody, veteran or newbies. So you can imagine how the difficulty doubles for the students from the Kansas State School for the Blind. We have the inspiring story here. First, let's meet the people involved. Here are the founder of Make48, Tom Gray, and John Harding, the school's superintendent.
Obviously 48 hours is that deadline. And in that time frame, the teams competing, they don't know the challenge, right? So they've got to go through all aspects of innovation. They've got to go through ideation, research. They meet with the patent attorneys, just like what Riley did on the weekend, focus group, and they've got a prototype. And many times you've got to do many variations of your prototype. Building one thing just doesn't usually happen, so you got to tweak it, you got to modify it. But what we found is that if you give a deadline, people will always hit that deadline. It's just a matter of what quality is that prototype at the end of the deadline. If you made it, a 1 month competition, you're going to have the same result. People will drag their feet. But we knew that 24 hours was too tight. And we knew that 48 hours was a good number because we could do these competitions on a weekend. So that all came into the factor.
We serve children who are either blind or visually impaired, significant enough to impact their education. So we have a campus, about 10 acres, and we serve 50 students throughout the school year, basically from August until May. And we have a residential component to our program. So students, about half our students stay here on campus Sunday evening through Friday afternoon. And then we also have a pretty robust outreach team. We call them field services, and they serve up to 800 students in a single year who don't come to our campus. So these are students who are attending public school. Unfortunately, over 70% of adults who are blind or low vision are not employed. So that drives what we do here every day. And it's part of the reason that we partnered with Make48. We work really hard with our students here to be self-advocates, to explain to the employer what it is that they need to get access. They don't need special favors. They simply need access. Sometimes it's technology. Sometimes it's manipulating the environment. Sometimes it's working with an orientation mobility specialist to make sure they can navigate the spaces safely. And often we find these accommodations are pretty minor.
Let's also hear from Riley, a student who participated in the contest. In fact, this is the first time she has ever worked with a CAD program. It seems she was particularly impressed by the augmented reality function.
I'm 15. I like to do a lot of different things. I like to build Legos and do puzzles, and sometimes I take pictures. I currently have a Star Wars poster up behind me. And I also have a Star Wars Lego set beside me that I'm still building. We're called the Wild Wings because we can, if you let us be in a room by ourselves for more than 3 hours, we can do some pretty crazy things. There was a big screen TV mounted on the wall, and I watched them tour around some of the other teams' projects, and I thought that was cool. And then about a day later, they had already set up our product and stuff through the CAD design. One of the guys handed me a tablet and says, point it at the table. And I'm like, wait, that product's not there, but it's on the screen. And so me and Jetta and I are moving the tablet in all sorts of ways, crawling on the floor to see. Like it was almost as if it was there, but it wasn't.
Make48 was founded in 2015, about 2 years before the membership-based makerspace called Tech Shop called it quit. At one point, the maker movement was on fire, spawning its own magazines and annual maker fairs. So where is the maker movement now? Here's Make48's Tom Gray with some thoughts.
Like anything, it always evolves. What it was 5-10 years ago is obviously very different than where it is currently, and 5 years from now it'll be different again. But I think that what I've seen, we do make 48s in different cities all over the Midwest and around the country, and we see the maker spaces of all different shapes and sizes. very small ones to what they had at the School for the Blind, right through to some very elaborate ones like you may see down at Go Create in Wichita, Kansas. But we've found that the most successful makerspaces all rely on one community person as the heart of the beginning of that makerspace, because your makerspaces can have all the same equipment, right, and can have walls and all that good stuff. It's what drives people to the makerspace, what keeps them there, how are they innovating within. And a lot of those makerspaces have different disciplines. So many have the classrooms coming in, they have the corporate sponsorship, they have the residents, they're members as well. And you need multiple different levels to make that makerspace work. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't think there could be a major brand sort of succeed in this. Each city has its own little unique community of a makerspace, and they're just different shapes and sizes, and it just comes down to the people and the leadership.
The competition took place in the first week of December. Here's Tom Gray explaining the challenge and Riley talking about her experience.
My wife and I have a farm just north of Kansas City, and we have a lot of chickens. And if you raise farm fresh eggs, you don't have to refrigerate them because they're not washed, and they have that protective bloom around them. So a lot of people in the country have a display of some type of chicken eggs that you put on your counter, and it's often a piece of art, and it often disperses the eggs as well. So we set the challenge to make an egg dispenser or an egg holder that could be very artistic or very engineering based. We set the size limitations, so it couldn't be too big because of the space on people's counters. We also set limitations on safety. We didn't want any sharp edge or loose parts. And there were several other things we included in that challenge. So part of the ideation is that on the Friday when the teams got the challenge, we brought in a whole bunch of chickens so that the students could all, touch chickens and have some fun with that. We brought in a lot of eggs. Those eggs were real. They were not hard boiled. So we wanted to see a lot of cracked eggs. And I was really surprised that there weren't too many cracked eggs. Even when they were trialing out their prototypes, there was a few cracked here and there, but nothing crazy. So we thought that was a good challenge for the students, a lot of fun. Anytime you bring animals into something, it really lifts up that spirit of innovation, we find.
When I originally heard the challenge, I'm like, well, darn it. I thought here we were going to help chickens, not cook them. And then I realized that it was going to be for the eggs. Like, okay, I can deal with that. We had a lot of different ideas. One being like a spinny cake tray type thing. But then we just decided to go with the cabinet, which the front door is absolutely gorgeous. If I could, I would take that piece home and then hang it up on my wall, but I couldn't.
Computer-aided design, or CAD, requires lots of visual cues and manual navigation. So how will the visually impaired community work with it? Here are some perspectives.
When you talk about software, I think what makes it accessible is it accessible to a screen reader, for one thing. Our students use products like NVDA or JAWS that make software accessible. Are there tags set up? Is it text-based? Once it's numerical or text, our students can manipulate that software. But a lot of times it's visual. It's visually based. The products are made for people with vision, so it is not always accessible. But I think that's what's important, is that our students learn that they can be of value to software manufacturers or developers who want to make their products accessible for the market.
Onshape, the web-based CAD program from PTC, is a sponsor of the competition. Here's Michael LaFlash from Onshape and Make48's Tom Gray.
I was like, how are we going to create an interface for people to actually interact with the products they designed, right? So Onshape has this thing called FeatureScript, and FeatureScript is a way of customizing Onshape and creating customized features. I was like, okay, is there a Braille custom feature anywhere that somebody had written? And turns out there was, and I was able to find that custom feature and, have Braille like 3D objects being, available, so it could be 3D printed and put onto like the front of a cabinet door so people would know what was in that cabinet, right? Personally, I'm colorblind, so anything I can do to make Onshape better for me to see, obviously I'm looking at. But there's definitely a lot more that can be done. There are things in web browsers you can add in different extensions and things that can help, like change the color of the screen to a darker background and things like that. But definitely much more that not only us, but all CAD systems need to do to support this community. Some people can see and some people completely cannot see whatsoever, right? So, being able to work with such a visual, medium like CAD, it was a challenge, but I thought it was going to be a challenge, but it wasn't actually. There, every team, they had great ideas. They were able to convey what they were looking for. The interesting thing is they didn't know any limits, which I thought was fantastic, right? They're designing things that I would like look at myself and like, I can't design that and build that in 48 hours. That's crazy, but I'm not going to tell them that. I was able to help one team create something more complex that was, than I've done in any kind of professional application, building a double helix kind of funnel pipe. But, I was creating things that I had never done in real life. And we were able to print, across multiple 3D printers at once, this crazy shape. So I thought that was a really, really fun example of where people could go.
Our partnership with Onshape has been a really good one for our competitions. To have a CAD design that's on the cloud that can be communicated, collaborated quickly is very much a key for our competitions in general.
Now this is where I usually do my closing, the one that goes, I'm Kenneth Wong for DE247, until next time, and so on. But in this special episode, I'd like to give the last words to a special person. So here's Riley from Kansas State School for the Blind.
You don't have to have eyes to see what is going on around you and to see what you're doing and to see your future. Sometimes you just have to go, okay, this is what I want to do, and then do it.